We're going to call to order the CAMPO meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell.
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte.
Here.
Member Dodson.
Here.
Member Erb.
Here.
Member Henderson.
I'm here.
Member McQuarrie. Member Novak. Member Rosenberg.
Here. My name is Jeff Barry.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. My name is Jeff Barry. I'm an alternate for Sandra Rosenberg.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we have a quorum. We're going to move on then to agenda item number 3, which is our public comment period. Is there any public comment? Denny, come on up for your 3 minutes. You're welcome. You'll hear a beep if there's a, our other electronic one isn't working, so you'll hear a beep from our timer.
Thank you very much, Chair, and all. Thank you. To make this brief, I'm not using the last names, but I fell into this because I came in to get water. I wasn't expecting to come in for this particular meeting. I was preparing for another meeting, so that's not happening. So the thing is, I wanted to thank so much Jack. I really appreciate it. I haven't ridden a bus in a long time, but that's not to say that I don't realize how important they are, because they allow me to really walk. If I didn't have the availability of a bus, should my legs give out, should I not be able to make the trip, I have an option. And in many places, that's not possible. Thank you all for keeping it going. Thank Chris and Alex and Rebecca and Kathleen for their answering a lot of questions. And I know after the meeting today, I'll probably have more. But I just really wanted to thank you all for contributing to keeping things rolling. And while I have some differences of opinions about maybe how your structures are, or how your postings and such, and things I'd like to contribute as far as thoughts towards that, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you. And there are opportunities for the public to respond and get information to you that might help you in your future planning. And I'd really appreciate it if the public knows that and really understands that you're available, and to have them put forward their thoughts and ideas and feelings, because that's going to help this master plan as you're moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have any other public comment? Okay, then we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of May 11th. Does any member have any changes? Anything? If not, I'll accept a motion for approval.
I'll move to approve the minutes of May 11th CAMPO meeting.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the May 11th minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5A, which is discussion and possible action concerning an amendment to our agreement with NDOT to change our project date. And let's see, Ms. Schutte, do I have a disclosure?
Yes, you do. Thanks. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Martinovich, will you give us the highlights of this, please?
Yes, I certainly will. Thank you, Madam Chair. The item here in front of us, in front of this board, is to essentially extend the agreement terms from June 30th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. All the rest of the conditions of the agreement remain, including the funding. We've continued to work with our consultant, Kimley Horn and Associates, to develop a variety of project components. Right now, we're digging knee-deep into performance measures and looking at what types of performance measures CAMPO can and should be looking at and being able to track long-term, thinking things through like, travel time reliability or additional signal timing coordination and measures. And so we're working with that consultant to do those actions. We just need a little bit more time to work through that. Ultimately, we want to implement some new timing mechanisms and start tracking performance measures and compile that into a report to see what's feasible and not feasible. So this item really just is to extend that contract and allow us to continue to work and partner with NDOT.
Does any member have a question?
Chris, I was looking at the amount of the budget that has been spent. It looks like just a little over 40%. And just wondering about the lack of progress from what was originally negotiated. Would seem like maybe some of the COVID issues, you couldn't progress the project like you'd envisioned. I guess my comment would be that it would be nice to see things taken care of this year, with this extension. I think that, the ultimate goal of this thing is the implementation of some measures. Some of those projects may develop. You may be competing for state or federal funding for some of the things that come out of this. And it would be good to have those ready so, you could compete and make those betterments as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments. I think one of the areas that we've sort of kind of shifted gears and slowed things down a little bit as the infrastructure bill has rolled out, and we're understanding more of those provisions of that bill. I think we've taken a little bit of a side track to be more consistent with that new guidance, right? We were previously under the FAST Act. There's some different incentives and different priorities with the infrastructure, the IIJA. And so we're looking to making sure we're consistent with those. There was a little bit of delay in looking at that. The other thing, and I think the biggest part associated with this particular project and the lengthening of the schedule had to do with a lot of data collection. I think there was more than we were originally anticipating, and it took a long time for our not only CAMPO staff, but Kimley Horn to do all the data collection, whether it was through the LiDAR driving around the city, or it was our staff, Kelly and Marquise and team going out and actually doing a lot of the survey and documenting a lot of the polls that have multiple benefits, right? Not only for this study, but now we get to use them in the city's asset management. And so now we have them as an asset management point that we can use going forward. So I think that data collection and developing the process to actually physically collect the data has really taken a little bit longer than we originally anticipated at the beginning of the project. That's all completed. We're moving forward now with finishing the life cycle and looking at the performance measures. And then the last stage of the project will be like implementing to see how we do in terms of tracking performance measures. Are we able to meet the criteria that we established for ourselves? How do we do that long term? What's sustainable? What do we need going forward? That's sort of the last phase of the project. I agree. I want to finish this definitely before this June 30th, 2023. Totally on board.
So that kind of brings me to my question. If I look at the proposed motion, I'm very comfortable with the amendment for the year, but I don't know that I'm as comfortable with the back half of that discussion to allow you to sign future amendments to extend the time. I think that we want to keep the, what's the right word to say, pedal to the metal and really push this out and really understand if it needs to come back here if you want to go beyond the year. I want to understand why they're unable to perform or what's going on, because unless you're already telling me, because this way it makes me think you're already guessing it won't make it in the year.
I have no reason
Right,
to think that we won't make it in the year, so I'm totally comfortable if you want to entertain a change to that.
Okay, so we would just do the motion to sign the amendment and end the motion there. Okay, does anyone else have a question? No? Any public comment on this item? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Amendment 1 as presented and to authorize the transportation manager to sign the amendment that extends the time for performance under the original contract.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the time on the contract. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. I got too much paper, it seems like today. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 6. So this is where we will start off with the transportation manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of items where we've been working through a future tip amendment, so we anticipate definitely bringing that. I know you guys mentioned this last month, and I'm probably going to eat my words. No, we're going to bring forward again a tip amendment to this board for a variety of projects associated with community funding apportionments, as well as changes to William Street because of those apportionments. So look for that next meeting. A couple of other big picture statewide meetings. I think tomorrow there's an NVACS meeting that Kelly's going to be attending. She's prepared to pass on the message of this board received last month. So we have that prepared. That's tomorrow. Next week is another advisory working group, the Sustainable Funding Advisory Working Group meeting with NDOT. So I'll be attending that one and providing any updates to the board as needed. Also working on a local road safety plan in coordination with NDOT. So we're working through an agreement process for that, and they're going to be funding a large portion of completing a local road safety plan here in the region. They have the consultant hired, so we're kind of playing an advisory collaborative role. So we're looking forward to getting that project going, and there'll be an agreement at some point to this board. And lastly, I wanted to mention is the William Street feasibility study. We're finalizing the full feasibility, the planning document that'll be brought to the CAMPO board in July as well, when we'll see kind of the big picture. The Regional Transportation Commission for Carson City provided guidance on the design alternatives. Now we've kind of packaged that all up together in the full feasibility study report for presentation to this board. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's my report.
Does anybody have any questions?
Comment, Chris, you forgot the Nevada Transportation Conference. You were one of the panelists, and it was a good session for a day and a half to see what's going on nationally and what's going on statewide. So thank you for that.
Okay. Under agenda item 6B, does anyone have any correspondence or reports or comments? Anyone?
Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you. Wes?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. Hey, NDOT recently did a study on the Highway 50 corridor, and most, if not all, of the part of Highway 50 that was in that study is within CAMCO's borders. So I think it'd be beneficial if we could ask NDOT to make a presentation about that study and their plans on implementing it, and also with maybe an update on some acceleration due to some of the safety issues we're having out here.
Be happy to see what I can put together for you. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other? No. Okay, then we'll move on to our final public comment. Is there any final public comment for CAMPO? Okay, seeing none, if there's no objection, we're adjourned. And give us just 5 minutes and we'll become the RTC group. Thank you. Afternoon again. We're going to call the Regional Transportation Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte,
Here.
Member Dodson, Member Novak, Member McQuarrie. A quorum's present.
Thank you so much. We're now on to agenda item number 3, which is our public comment period. Do I have any public comment? Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is approval of our minutes of May 11th. Do I have any corrections or changes to note? If not, I'll accept a motion for approval of the May 11th minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the May 11th, 2022 RTC meeting as presented.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the May 11th minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item, 5A, which is for discussion only, which is going to let us know about the public comments related to the fare increases for Jack. Is Chris going to start off this one?
I will
or-
give this a brief
You're gonna start
introduction.
it off?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. We're in the middle of a public outreach campaign, public comment period for reviewing and potentially increasing fares for the Jump Around Carson transit system. Alex is going to take us through a couple of slides. We've seen those before, just to recap and reiterate and continue our outreach effort. We have received a few comments through our CAMPO email system. We held a public meeting prior to the CAMPO board today from 3 to 4:30. We received a couple of people attended that. We've received their comments, so I appreciate the input we're getting, and we look forward to additional input through June 24th of this month. Upon which we will compile those comments. We will bring them forward to the RTC at the July 13th meeting, in which case this board will have the option to adjust fares at your discretion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex just to give a reminder, a recap, an update, a refresh, whatever term you want to use regarding our fares.
Thank you, Chris. Alex Cruz, Transit Coordinator. During the May RTC meeting, staff brought forward an item to bring back fares to the Jack Transit system, along with a possible fare increase. With RTC approval, staff have moved forward with the public outreach needed to inform riders and the public of the possible fare increases. The fare increase amounts are shown on packet page 15, also on the screen. These are the same as presented to the RTC in May. The fares include a 50 cents increase to the fixed route fares, a $1 increase to Jack Assist fares within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route, and a $2 increase for rides within 3/4 to 1 mile buffer zone within Carson City. Staff were adamant about not raising the fares without some improvement for the riders. So we have emphasized the improvements coming to Jack. That includes a contactless fare payment system, free Wi-Fi on all the buses, and 5 new buses that should be arriving sometime this summer. And staff began the public outreach period on May 25th of 2022. Staff placed a notice in the Nevada Appeal, posted the information on both the CAMPO website and ridejack.com, and also posted notices in all buses and bus stop shelters. Our transportation manager was also interviewed by some local news outlets regarding the fares. Staff has also held a public meeting today at 3 p.m. Before the RTC meeting, and we've begun to receive some public comment via email as well as some at the earlier meeting. And we'll track all the comments to be presented to the RTC board at the July meeting. Depending on possible action by the RTC, staff will be ready to move forward with fares beginning August 1st of 2022. And the public comment period does continue until June 24th of 2022. So we implore the public to get their comments into us. Comments can be submitted in a variety of ways, including attending the RTC meeting, submitting a comment card through mail, emailing staff, and through a phone call as well. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Does any member have a question? No? Ms. Schutte?
Hi, I was just curious on the Jack Assist monthly, the new fares for a monthly pass. What is an average rate of use for Jack Assist?
Yeah, it definitely varies, but there are some riders that will do at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
Usually going to like an appointment, like maybe dialysis or something, so you'd get a ride there, get a ride back, and then maybe come back another time during the week. The Jack Assist monthly is really a good option for somebody that has to do something like that, especially if they're within that 3/4 of a mile to 1 mile buffer zone, because that's where it really kind of is a little bit more of a deal for them. But yeah, there's plenty of people that do 2 to 3 times a week for Jack Assist.
I think it's a great addition.
So my question just really comes at that we have potentially that the fare would change August 1st, and we would potentially adopt it on July 13th date. Do you think that's actually enough time for notice of a fare change? You know, the more when I was just watching, I'm like, is that really sufficient? So we don't have to. Obviously, it's a discussion only item, but I ask you to think about that, to whether or not it really should be September. We're giving 45 days notice of a actual change, or do you think the 15, 16, 17 days, whatever it is, sufficient?
This 30-day comment period we're going through now is part of the whole outreach effort, and it counts as towards that public noticing of a possible fare change. And so I think our challenge could be that we would need to print the monthly passes with the new update. That's probably the only constraint. But as soon as the RTC would potentially approve a fare change, we're ready to go with new posters and new flyers to put out in terms of here are the changes, here is the start date and things like that. We're prepared to do that for August 1st. The one thing is printing the monthly passes. That would be the potential.
And people that buy a pass wouldn't like, I don't know about you, but I'd buy my pass maybe the middle of the month. They wouldn't have pre-bought potentially a August pass, so you're saying you won't print them and make them available till after July 13th. See what my
And
question is, like you
yeah.
buy your punch pass for the pool or you buy your punch pass for something and you're ahead of the game, but you would honor it, right? If they bought one for August and it was at the prior rate,
We will definitely
you'll just
honor
honor
those
it?
for sure.
Okay.
Yes,
you know
absolutely.
where I'm going there is like, uh-oh, I don't want people thinking they bought their pass and they get on the bus. Oh, sorry, you've got a pass that
No.
hasn't got the increased rate.
If,
Okay.
if for some reason somebody's hanging on to a pass that they purchased in March or April of 2020,
Right.
we will honor those as well.
Okay.
So there's certainly, we're going to not prevent somebody from getting on the bus just because they have an older pass or they've purchased a pass prior to the August 1st date.
So let me understand, the pass purchasing is not for a specific month then? You're saying
It's a
it
monthly, it's a
starts-
30-day window.
So the 30-day is a rolling day? So if I bought it July
Rolling day.
13th, it's good
Yes.
till August? Is it from the purchase date or the first time I use it and then I got 30 days?
It's the purchase date, is it not, Alex? Yeah.
Sorry, I believe it's the purchase date.
Well, then I don't understand your answer. And you guys can come back to us in July if you want. And you can, if you understand, if it's
Yes.
purchase date and it's only good for 30 days and it's rolling versus it's not August 1 to August 30th, it might be August 15th is what you're saying, but it's
And,
purchase
and I will
date.
and I will clarify.
And how do you honor
the ones
one that
prior
was-
ones is because
Thank
they were purchased and then we immediately went to free fares, which means they didn't ever have the chance. So if they were purchased in that March to April timeframe, we're going to continue to honor those of 2020. We're going to continue to honor those because they've already paid $25. So and never got the full month because it was free and they didn't have to pay that. Nobody had to pay that. So we want to honor those passes that were purchased that weren't fulfilled to their end date because fares were turned off, essentially.
Okay, I just bring those thought processes up to be ready for discussion in
Okay, thank
July
you.
so that we're covering our bases and giving you guys enough authority to deal with what you need to. Anybody else has any?
Yeah, got a question since we're still trying to time this out. The other updates, the contactless payment system and the free Wi-Fi, that'll be on the new buses, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So what we're trying to do is kind of, as long as the buses come in within a certain date, they should be, we're scheduling our install for like the free Wi-Fi system and the contactless fare payment system. The contactless fare payment system is a little bit easier. It's not going to be something that every bus has to have hardware installed. So that'll be easy for the drivers to to get the training on that. The Wi-Fi system is planned for the new buses, so as long as they get here within a certain date in July, which it's looking like they should be, then the installer should be able to make it happen for that August 1st date.
But the intent is to have these new updates in place before the fares go up, but there's no guarantee, right? I mean,
I will,
you're
I
gonna-
will note that if there's a delay in the vendor who installing the contract display, then I think we could certainly talk about delaying the implementation of the contactless fare as well as the fare increase until we've got that all up and running.
Okay.
And that's something we want to hash out schedule-wise at the July meeting for sure.
We can talk about that in July. I don't know that they're explicitly linked,
Not directly.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, those are just the new benefits as we're able to implement them. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not linked to say, well, you have to pay an increased or a fare because of that. It's a combination of things as we no longer have free fares that we're allowed to do because we don't have the COVID money coming in to backfill the fare money. So, but just keep in mind for us the implementations and the processes and noticing time and printing and all that so that we try to get a home run on our first foray back into this and that you don't end up with more issues Whoops, that didn't work out well, so, okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Denny?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board. The question that comes up to me is that you had the COVID funding and allowed the free rides for quite a while. Are these fare increases because of that layoff in the funding? And if not, which I'm sort of getting that's a fact, but this Wi-Fi, I don't have Wi-Fi at my house. I don't have any services because it's not in my budget. And I'm wondering, does this cost really make it necessary for the fee increases? Now, it just seems like a intermittent time thing. All the little stores that used to have a Dollar Tree type thing now add 25 cents plus the tax on that top amount. Every nickel and dime that's added to my required budget needs. I don't have a flexible deal. I can't look for grants. Well, maybe I should, but I haven't quite figured out grants. I'll check with Rebecca on that. But the deal is that every penny that someone's going to pay to try to get to work, to try to make a living, people that are riding the bus now definitely need that bus, but that fare is huge for a person like myself and others. And I want you just to really sort of understand that. And if there's not a real necessity, there's no grants to cover it, I understand fees, but if we're adding a service that a lot of us can't use anyway, and that's adding to the cost, which needs to have then the new fares, then perhaps Wi-Fi for some people, that's going to be, what, a half-hour ride on the bus? How does that fit into the logic of increasing it just that much more for people that are already really fighting budget issues? So I appreciate that, and thank you. I didn't get a chance to discuss that before. I would have covered it, and perhaps I'm way offline, but thank you for letting me. Thank you.
No, it's a good question. I don't think that any of the fare increases were, so that's not like you can target, is it 10 cents to be able to do the Wi-Fi like you're suggesting. I think the issue was we had new buses and surveys that were done throughout the Jack users for things that they wanted and some of the priorities that were selected. I'm trying to remember the hierarchy that was coming down that. So contactless payment systems really also dealt with ways to stop the spread of any, not just COVID, but any diseases, right? So the least amount of extra touching and things that we can do within the system just keeps it cleaner. So I think that one's really tied to a health indicator to go for the contactless. The Wi-Fi was requested as a issue by the riders, if I recall, right? They wanted that service.
Correct. It was one of those amenities that riders were looking for. And then it was also kind of a good thing to add with contactless fare payment, because if somebody has an issue with their phone for whatever reason, if the Wi-Fi is there, they're able to connect to the Wi-Fi, pull up their fare or their bus pass and show it to the bus driver. So there's no issue with phones not working unless, the battery dies or something.
Right. So it really enables the user the tools to not have their paper that they might not have on them or whatever. So how about cost-wise, was the Wi-Fi really, wasn't it kind of incorporated within the contactless? I mean, I don't know, are we paying a specific fee for the Wi-Fi?
We currently have a deal with Verizon where we pay for the tablets that run a certain amount of data. So the change is just going to be that data is going to be increased to a certain amount. So the cost goes up an incremental amount, but not a very huge amount. And it was something that we planned before, where we kind of knew we needed a certain amount of money ahead of time. So it's something that we saw coming.
Integrated within the system that we're doing. So it's not, so if we didn't do Wi-Fi, I want to say it differently. That's a better way to say it. If we chose not to implement the Wi-Fi component, I'm not going to be able to really update these fares by anything substantial to reduce the fares. Because I think that's what the public comment was about. Are we able to chop this down if we don't do Wi-Fi?
And that's correct, yeah. I mean, it's, the fair was more because a lot of these other larger costs are coming in, so like our contract operator going from, 800,000 to over, over $1 million. That's where these larger things are coming in, and then.
Is what's
Yeah,
driving it.
yeah, and those purchases of those buses, like you mentioned earlier, those large capital costs. These, like Wi-Fi and things like that, are just a little bit smaller. They're not a huge dent in our budget.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or thoughts? Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks for again, that was a discussion-only item. So we're now going to move on to agenda item 5B, which is for action. This is the determination that Nevada Barricade and Sign Company is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for contract number 213-00304 for our 2022 long line pavement striping project. I have Brian on this one. Hello, he knew he was coming up next. Is there any highlight or anything? I could even do this different. It's pretty standard thing that we do, our contract. Does any member have any questions of Brian or anything that gave rise during your reading of the packet? Nothing? Yeah, it's pretty standard what we do here.
Just in case you had
Okay.
questions.
Okay, is there any public comment on this agenda item? Denny?
Danny French, thank you, Chair and Board. You're probably wishing I was doing other studies right now. But the main thing is, I don't know Brian, I don't know his position, and when I read this, I'm going, okay, help me out a little bit and help me understand where he fits into this particular set where we're at right now. I'm sorry. That's all that I wanted to know. I could have probably asked him afterwards, but
Yeah, that would be fine as an offline if you want to see the hierarchy. He's in charge of the group that will be handling this
the
contract.
contractual. We got a chance to talk to Alex a little bit about the contractual. And
Yeah, he
also
does
Chris.
Jack and he does traffic and he's the boss.
I
and
know
yeah.
I know him from somewhere. I just
So
couldn't
we'll be
put-
happy to have staff talk to you about the structure. No
Thank
problem.
you.
Absolutely, no problem. Okay, is there any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll take a motion then.
I move to award the contract as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the contract as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brian, if you just give a little chat over there, thank you so very much. Okay, we're now on to agenda item number 6, which is our transportation manager's report.
Madam Chair, a few highlights. First of all, I want to note, and I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for attending the Kings Canyon ribbon cutting, Commissioner Novak for attending the ribbon cutting. It was chilly up there, but it was a nice event, and I think the project was a success, and I hope that we start to use that trail and then the road, and we see the benefits going forward. So I appreciate you guys attending that event. Next month, as we mentioned, Jack Fairs. I appreciate the discussion we had, so we'll see that item in July. 2 other items for next month. We have actually one other item, project prioritization for our District 5 projects. Brian and Kelly have been working diligently on identifying those projects, and so we're working through those details, and we'll bring those prioritizations to the RTC for discussion at the next meeting. That would also include the American Rescue Plan projects as well for District 5 and all of the districts,
And all the
actually,
districts.
all 5
Right, okay.
projects. Yes. Lastly, I wanted to just note that you'll start to see some of other projects beginning. We are starting our slurry projects. This would include Solomon Road, Curry Street, and Silver Sage that were awarded at the last RTC in May. So those will be starting here relatively soon this summer. We also are starting, I think, next week, is the 5th Street right turn pocket on the Carson River Road. So we had a pre-construction meeting this morning, and so we'll be seeing that project starting to move here in the next week or so. So those are the highlights I wanted to bring to this board, but happy to answer any other questions.
Does any member have a question? No? Okay, then we'll go to 6B, our operations and activity report.
So on 6B, this is our operations activities report for April of 2022. We've done, I just want to note there a couple of things. There's a lot of crack sealing that's been happening in this particular month. And so our street operations crews, they do that ahead of our slurry projects. So they can go out and do those cracks. They get all those filled. They clean them out, get the growth that sometimes occurs in our streets, get that cleaned out, get those cracks filled, and then when the contractor comes in and slurries those, we get a better product, a more sealed, more thorough product. So they're doing that, and I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing that particular item significant on this month. A number of other things, shoulder work, a lot of ditch work. Now that the rain and weather have stopped, we can regrade our shoulders, we can clean our ditches in preparation for next winter. And then lastly, I'll just mention on the back page, there continues to be some graffiti here and there, and so there's some additional signs that our crews are always addressing and taking care of. So it looks like there were 28 additional signs this past month in April. So otherwise, happy to answer questions or provide any other background.
City member have a question?
Yeah, Chris, I think I saw the Center Street project was moving along pretty quick too. I don't know if they started paving
I believe
yet or
they're
not.
paving this week, yes.
Yeah, so that was looking good, and I like the way you guys are coordinating among all the city departments to
Ryan?
get things done in order, and so you don't have to redo. So thank you.
And I'll mention as well, on speaking of long line that we awarded, we're always cognizant of not striping a project we're about to tear up or slurry. So we're always trying to coordinate those best practices to make sure we're getting the most for every dollar that we have.
So, Chris, on the report, we show that 26 trees were removed during April and 47 fiscal year to date, but we don't have any tree replacements. Is that mostly from the 3rd Street project when we had to remove the trees in that parking lot? Or I'm just wondering why I don't see any replacement trees.
So I don't know exactly where all these trees are. I do know there are a couple of locations specifically. For one, Curry Street near 10th Street, there were a number of trees that were removed there. So I think those are reflected on this. There were also a number of trees that came down during the wind that we had. I think it was in that April timeframe, particularly around Long Street, the west end of Long Street, and some of that neighborhood. There were a number of trees that came down onto various city streets. Those get incorporated into this as well. If the wind knocks them down, they get incorporated in this as well. I don't know of any. It doesn't look like that our street crews have placed any trees, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a contractor associated with a project, they probably have placed trees, and those would not necessarily be reflected in our street operations report.
If you could just check on that
I can
a little
absolutely
bit for
check
me.
on it, for sure.
I just want to be able, trees are important. I'm not recognizing that sometimes you have to remove them because they're a danger or they have lifted up the sidewalks so much. And I think that's what I recall was happening at the end of Curry there near that
Correct.
apartment complex. But if I could just have a little detail that you can share with us, that
I will
would be great.
absolutely follow up, yes.
Thank you so much. And really, I know this is work to do this report, but I think it really tells the picture much more broader of what Public Works is doing besides just working on a road or working on this. So I really appreciate that. I think
I'll pass that along.
Okay, we're gonna move on to agenda item 6C to talk about, is there any future agenda items, communication, any member have anything to share? Anything? Supervisor Schutte?
I just wanted to, compliment the King Street project and how smooth the road is and what a great ribbon cutting it was. And really, it's beautiful up there, and it was wonderful to see the Stokes there as well, and that collaboration. And it's obvious that they appreciated the fact that the city did work with them and finding that balance. So kudos on that. And then I rode the Lincoln Trail, and oh my, it is so beautiful, and it's a good grind up to the start, but wow, it's delightful. So
The vistas are beautiful.
and just smooth, and the lower section, I walked a few corners, but really wonderful. So well done, and kudos. And to Muscle Powered
I'll
and
pass that to
City
the
and
Open Space Advisory.
Open Space and all the
team and
above.
everybody.
So it was a good collaborative effort.
And then just for anyone that's listening about that particular project, certainly we ended up having to close a portion of that trail for dogs. And there's been a lot of emails, postings, concern about the equities of doing that to our animals in our community. I just want to, just for the public record, there will be a joint Parks and Rec and Open Space Committee that will really be addressing the dog issues citywide in all of our parks and trails. So if you have concerns, comments, public things, please address them to that committee. That will then be making recommendations on our system-wide. I was going to come out wrong, not use of dogs. That was wrong. Use of our park systems and trail systems and how animals fit within that. So please send public comments and show up at that particular meeting so they can take those into scope when they want to make recommendations to the full Board of Supervisors. That will then be somewhere in August or September based on the work of those committees. So everything's not in stone, but we're doing the right thing for now, and we'll see where it turns out. So if you have public comments or things on that issue, in July, there's the joint. Do you remember the date in July? Just so that in case the public's interested. Gosh, we all have to have those nice little calendars to keep track of what we're doing. But I just would love to put that out on the public record so that they.
Monday, the 18th.
Okay,
July
so
18th.
on the 18th of July, if you want to help shape the dog policies, please come and go to that public meeting. You can do 3 minutes of public comment, or you could even submit it in writing, but it would be a great place to start. Yes, absolutely.
And just to add to that, it's also an opportunity to really learn about the why behind the decision. Nothing is just taken in its own little vacuum. There really were several mitigating factors that led to that decision. And so I think that kind of dialogue is important.
Thank you. Do we have any other communications or anything to deal with?
Nope.
No?
Mayor, one comment from me. At the Kings Canyon opening, I know you gave a nice speech and mentioned you discussed the trails at the mayor's meeting that you attended as well.
Did.
As follow-up to that, I'd sent Chris a link. The International Trails Summit will be in Reno in April of 2023, and he's already passed that on to the Carson City folks involved in that. So there's a big crowd that'll be coming to that, and as a host, I think Carson City probably will do real well in that event as well.
Well, that's wonderful. I already had a conversation with the mayor that popped over and used our trails and said we had a lot to be proud of, and he wishes he had that fervent of a community. And actually, to tell you the truth, he wanted our quality of life, question 18 funds, right? He's going, how'd you get this done? And I'm like, because our community values that so much that we passed a tax to do it. And he goes, oh boy, but he was really impressed. So it really was fun to do. Okay, if there's no one has anything else on agenda item 6, we'll go to our final public comment. Okay, Denny, one more.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Chair. Thank you for your comments about the trees. The question helped me understand, so I didn't have to jump up with my arms waving. So thank you very much about that, and I look forward to hearing that there are replants considered, and those trees are indigenous to low water needs and such. But thank you all. This has been a great opportunity for me. I hadn't been at one of your meetings for quite a while, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no further public comment? Then if there's no objection, we're adjourned. Thank you all for a good meeting.